Hello everyone. The second example of working with functions and creating programs from custom functions. The next problem is on the screen. I may have made this up myself, or maybe it's something like what the book has. In any case, we can do this and we will do this quickly. Read this one, two, three times, as many times as you need to understand what's going on, and start profiling it for which tools do you need, what ideas do you need, and maybe eventually how it all comes together. It's completely normal to read it a few times, to maybe pick up something easy that you know very well how to do, then think about another aspect and the third aspect, and finally, how will you bring them together? First of all, and perfect point to stop the video and do it yourself. First of all, program should run for as long as the user wants. That is a very explicit hint for a while loop. Now, there will be a specific function to decide whether a number is even, and this is what we will need to make. If you Google, you will probably find some package that does it for you, and I don't want to use that. It's actually very easy to program by yourself, so that's what we will do. And the middle part, probably the bring in all together part, write a program that allows a user to enter positive numbers, so this whole routine with input and then convert to integer. And also there is a counter here. Now, in spirit of problem solving, you need to divide and conquer, decide what you want to do first. Maybe you want to do this first, or maybe you want to do the entourage for a while loop and make sure that works. There are some choices to be made here. It's a good idea for us to remember a while loop and a sentinel. So that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, number will be -1, just to prime it somehow, and the while loop, while number is, or just not equal to 0, I'm going to ask the user to enter an actual value to work with, number, going to be converted to int, but first it's going to be input. Int input, enter a positive integer, enter 0 to quit. So number equals to 0 will be my sentinel. The while loop will run for as long as the number is not 0. Okay, now if we are cool, oops, I forgot to close the second parenthesis. If we are cool, we are able to do it in a fun top-down approach, like starting from the main and then going down all the way to this little function that is deciding whether the number is even. So it's completely up to us. We have a little bit of the program done. I'm going to follow my top-down approach. So there is some way to figure out that the number is even. I'm going to call it isEven, a function. And I'm going to say if isEven number. So that already means that this will be a function which will return true or false, and we are to write this function later. So one possible disadvantage is that we won't be able to debug it right away. But that's how cool kids do this. Okay, if isEven number, then I'm going to increase the counter. So I will need a counter variable. Counter usually begins at 0. And in this case, I'm adding 1 to the counter. And else, maybe I should inform the user, also make it easier for debugging. Print this is an even number, and alternative will be an odd number. Odd number. And finally, when finally the user enters 0, we will be able to quit. And for now, I will print counter and maybe a nice statement about it. The number of even values you entered is that. If I tried to run it, it would run into this issue. I did not create this function yet. Also, there should be a main here, there should be some beautification. So for now, I'm creating def is even and some number n. And how do I check if the number is even? Pause the video and say it. Return. The easiest way to do it, return and percentage signs to equals double equality 0. Right? Remember that percentage sign means a remainder. Remainder of n divided by 2 is equal to 0. We're checking whether this is true or false. Let me make a comment. Returns true or false. And now this will work as intended, and we can start debugging it. Or maybe before we even debug it, let's do def main. And then I will do tab. If you press tab, the code will automatically be indented. Okay, this is a top-down approach. The disadvantage of top-down approach is that you will need to figure out how to debug it. So instead of, for example, this function is even, I could create a dot that returns true always, and that would be good enough for debugging at first, at least run it somehow and see if it works. Or in this case, I knew that this code will work out, so I just typed it up. Let's check if it actually works or if I have any errors in there. So the code ran, no functions were called, so no surprise that it did not actually show anything. I want to debug is even first. 5 is even 5, returns false. Is even 3, returns false. Is even 10, returns true. So is even seems to work. And now let me call main and debug the whole thing. Enter a positive integer. By the way, if you see an issue right now, that's very good. There is a little issue for us to fix. This is an odd number. Enter a positive integer, 0 to quit. This is an even number, and the number of even values you entered is 1. So technically I entered 0, and it counted 0 as an even number, which it is, but the only use for 0 here is to quit the loop. And that is something I need to fix. Superficial fix over here is to realize that we finish this while loop always with a 0, and it gets counted over here just like it did, and all we need to do is subtract 1, and that way it will work. If you have a smarter fix, feel free to implement it. There is definitely one. Okay, let me do main. Enter a positive integer 2. Enter a positive integer 3. Enter a positive integer another 3, and then another 2. Finally, I enter 0. So I really don't like that this is an even number shows up. I only need 0 to quit, I guess. So the number of even values you enter is 2. Nevertheless, this result is right. Okay, so everything works. We exercised a top-down approach. We used a counter, and we also used a function that returns true or false values, which is a nice little exercise. This is not the only way to do it, and we can easily fix the fact that it's commenting on entering 0, that 0 is an even number. So think how you could do this better. You could do an elif, for example. And that's it for this video.